Today we're going to review polynomial long division and synthetic division. Now back in the glory days of Algebra 2, you learned these two types. And we use both of them quite often in calculus. So let's go and take a quick review of polynomial long division. So our first problem, we want to solve these by long division. And we're taking x squared minus 4x minus 5, and we're dividing it by the factor x minus 5. Now, division in algebra is the same thing as factoring, so this is a way we can use factoring later on. So when I want to divide this polynomial, long division says I'm just going to do kind of like you did back in elementary school. We're going to write this as x squared minus 4x minus 5, and we're going to divide that by x minus 5 here. Now the whole goal is to get this x and this x squared to cancel. So we say, oh, what do I need to multiply x by to cancel with the x squared? And you all say x, because x times x is x squared. Now notice, you want to line up your powers. This is x to the first. Don't put it over x squared, put it over the 4x. And then we distribute. We get x squared minus 5x. Remember, we are subtracting, so this becomes a minus. We are subtracting it, so if you distribute the minus, we get a negative here, and that becomes a plus 5. So be very careful, so you get that minus on the outside. Which one happened? You want those x squareds to cancel, and they do. This becomes negative 4 plus 5, which is 1x, and just like in normal division, you bring down that next term, negative 5. Just like before, where we wanted the x and the x squared to cancel, now we want the x and the 1x to cancel. So we say, what do I need to multiply this by? And you say a positive 1. So we put plus 1. And again, we distribute, and we're going to get x minus 5. We take that 1 times x, we get 1 times 5 is, we get that minus 5. And again, don't forget we're just subtracting. So when you subtract, shortcut way, you subtract, and you change your signs, basically is what we're doing. Those cancel and the 5's cancel. Now, we get 0. Now, 0 is our remainder. And we're going to talk about that later on. Basically, what that means is if 0 is a remainder, what that means for us is that x minus 5 is a factor. And we're going to talk about that later on today. It's called the factor theorem. So, what is our answer when you divide? What are we left with? X plus 1. And there's our answer. Let's take a quick look at number 2 together. Now, same idea, except for notice we have different powers. X to the 4th, x squared, 3x, and 1. So, this is going to be a slightly longer one. And I'm dividing by x squared minus 1. Now notice what we're missing here though. We're missing an x to the 0 power. So we have to add that in. So it's really saying x to the 4th or plus 0x, should be x cubed. We're missing an x cubed power. Plus 0x cubed minus 3x squared plus 3x to the first minus 1. And we're going to divide that by this polynomial. Now this is missing an x to the first. So I say x squared plus 0x minus 1. And this is what we're going to divide by. So we write it all out. We get x to the 4th plus 0x cubed minus 3x squared plus 3x minus 1. Now, we will be talking about synthetic division. Most guys are like, can't we just use synthetic division? Yeah, for a problem like number 1, we can. But for a problem like number 2, synthetic division is much harder, so we actually prefer polynomial division here. So we get x squared plus 0x minus 1. And then I see, well, what do I have to multiply by? And you're saying, it's x squared. I want to get x to the 4th. We need an x squared. And then I just multiply. X squared times x squared is x to the 4th. X squared times 0x is plus 0x cubed. X squared minus times the negative 1, so minus x squared here. And we're subtracting. Subtract. Change your signs. Cancel. Stay goes away. So we get this 0x cubed, right? And then you get this minus 2x squared, and then bring down your plus 3x. So next what I have to say, well, what do I have to multiply by? So you can go 0x cubed, so we got to multiply by plus 0. Now you don't have to do plus 0. So what I would do in this case, don't worry about the 0x cubed. We don't worry about that one. But we still need 3 terms. I'm dividing by 3 terms, so I need 3 terms. So what I do then? I bring down the minus 1 here. And now I have to ask, well, what do I need to multiply x squared by to get negative 2x squared? And you're right, a minus 2. And then I distribute negative 2 times x squared, negative 2x squared. Those will cancel. Negative 2 times 0, so plus 0x, negative 2 times negative 1, plus 2. We're subtracting, so we change all of our signs. And what do we wind up with? Cancels. We get 3 minus 0, 3x minus 3. Now notice, I can't bring down any more, so that's my remainder. And how do we write our answer with this remainder? Well, very easy to do. Our answer is x squared minus 2 plus, we always write a remainder with a plus. Just like in arithmetic, we get 3x minus 3, and we divide by what we're dividing by, which is this x squared minus 1. Put your remainder on top. There's your remainder, and there is your divisor on bottom. It's kind of like if I did, what's 7 divided by 3? Well, 3 goes into 7 2 times with a remainder of 1. So I could write this as 2 plus 1/3, but we normally just write that as 2 and 1/3. We just can't get the luxury. We actually have to put the plus sign for polynomials. All right. What I would like you to try to do for tonight, for homework, is number 3. Now be careful, we're missing an x, so you actually have to add in a 0x term. Okay? Add in the ox, I like to call it. All right. And in part 2, we're going to take a look at synthetic division. So if you need to go through these and try them again, please feel free to go ahead and do so.